welcome everyone to UFO Chronicles. I'm Dorothy.
And I'm Drita, and how are you?
Very good, thank you. And yourself? You know what? Tonight we are going to talk about the government's position on UFOs. You and I have been voluble in the past about what we think on this. So tonight we're going to have a look at what the government's been telling us in more recent times. When I say the government, I want everybody to really recognize that America is not the government of the world. They're not considered the government of the world, and nobody else thinks of them as the government of the world except maybe Canada.
Except themselves.
Except themselves. So I want you to understand that, because the denial of UFOs is not worldwide by governments, but they're not always necessarily speaking about it because their own people have not necessarily had big experiences. Like here in New Zealand, it's treated as, oh, you saw that, that's really interesting, it gets into the papers, nobody denies it, nobody argues about it, but then it just sort of disappears. It's like we're all in the news of the day, aren't we? There's another news story tomorrow and next week. And I think it's a little bit sad because it's not getting the attention or the questions that it deserves globally. And it seems that the media around it is American-driven, media-wise, rather than...
It is.
Yeah. So the phenomenon of UFOs, it does exist, and it must be treated seriously. Mikhail Gorbachev, president of the Soviet Union, 1990, 1991, the general secretary of the Communist Party, 1985 to 1991. If you think your democratic government is more honest, you are completely mistaken. Mikhail Gorbachev is the one who said the phenomenon of UFOs does exist and it must be treated seriously. So there's a person who's got information, right? Like any president, any prime minister, any leader. Roswell has almost become a joke, if not a political football of evasion. The Clintons of this world, are career politicians that have zero interest in your well-being. And I'm not picking a political party. We're talking about the politicians that are career politicians. They don't come out of the I want to help my community. They come out of I'm a corporate mouthpiece. I'm born into this life. I'm the person creating it. I go to school for political gain and understanding. It's like the old boys, old girls club kind of a thing. You can never expect better, and you will be more able to make intellectual assessments, or should we say informed decisions about the things that go on beyond your daily life, if you accept this at the outset. That doesn't mean you shouldn't vote, you shouldn't have a party, but you shouldn't be religious about it, you shouldn't be dogmatic about it. You should be looking for those people that serve you, because that's their job, not rule you, serve you.
Serve you. That's such a big difference right there between ruling and serving.
Yes. Humanity has been held back for at least 80 years by the desire to secrete information that could provide a pathway for the betterment of mankind. And we are not just talking about UFOs. We're talking about the way huge leaps in technology have been held back so that certain organizations and corporations can make money. There's no conspiracy theory in it. We all know that we don't need to use fossil fuels anymore and haven't needed to use them for over 50 years, but we still are, because there are people who make money from that and they have no other alternative at this stage. They can't buy into the other industries to make their money from them. So we need to be aware of this. We might ask, why would anyone do this? And the answer is in how we use technology, accept our own reality. There is absolutely no let's blame the government. There is let's blame ourselves for not being involved or informed enough and making choices and letting them know. Governments don't do it to us, that which we are unprepared to experience.
Exactly. I think we do it to ourselves by letting them.
We do.
Yeah, we know this though through history by revelation and resistance of the peoples forcing change, but usually not before they have fought against crowdness and complicity, even when the very existence of majority is undetermined in the worst possible way. It's quite interesting, how we have kind of submitted to them, like most public has, but so there are people out there who haven't, but some people just they believe everything they put out there for us.
Well,
and
feel
like, whoa.
It's actually easier now than ever before to misinform people. In Venezuela, the riots started, and around the world we were told, what horrible people, but they had such a high rate of inflation that they couldn't afford the basics of food. And that's usually when people will revolt, when they can't support their basics.
Themselves,
and
yes.
yet they see their leaders supporting their lifestyles and their highness and the spending of monies that the taxpayers have given them. And there's no conspiracy theory in this. This is factual, and it happens around the world all the time. Secret decisions, the chances are pretty good that your money's going to be spent in a way that isn't what you intended when you paid it. And I think that's a very important thing to governments and corporations work hand in hand to make money for themselves, either as individuals or as companies or investments. And they very rarely, if ever, I can't remember her name, but she was one of the EU committee members, governors, and she stood up and she said, never believe for 1 minute that any government is selling you a story for your well-being. And she made that
Exactly.
very clear,
But lots of people, they are people of different parties. I feel like they take sides and they think whoever chosen president is at that time is doing best for them. And it's quite interesting to see how divided that is and how not true that is actually at the same time, because they all have that common kind of interest.
Well, that's when I was saying about it being dogmatic. Instead of looking for truth and honesty and humanity, because I don't do this, but there are so many people out there who are party politics, and they don't care how bad that party is. It's just that's what I believe in. It becomes like a religion to them, and that only works for that party. If they became more discerning, you'd realize that upfront bit is nothing. It's all those people that have been behind there making millions over 40 years and 50 years, and they're in every single year, and they are your policy makers, they are your decision makers, and they are corporate. They aren't.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty powerful position to be in. Every country's got them. We've got them here. These people that get voted in every year because somebody recognizes their name and it's there every year. They've got no clue. So we're not really learning about the politics. We're not being informed about it and haven't been for years. There was a court case, I can't remember his name, American anchorman anyway, and there was one against him and one against a woman, and you see him all over the place still. And in that court case, he was strung up for libel by a prominent man, and in the end they said, well, we don't see him as a news reporter, we see him as entertainment, and that was their defense. And he's an anchorman on a news show, and so they didn't have to pay libel because the judge decided that was correct. He was just an entertainer. He wasn't a news professional. And I'm like, excuse me, but he's on the news as an anchorman. And so all of these people are believing that it's like, have you noticed how people believe a movie is the truth, right? It's like...
Yes, I've been seeing that all the time. Like, oh, I resonated with that. That happened.
Yeah. Even one that's based on a true story, there might be just one part of it that's actually got truth and the rest is a story built around it for dramatic purposes.
Exactly, they usually do.
And that's fine. But we need to understand that entertainment is not our reality.
It's interesting. Where we support those who do damage to us for profit, we are our own worst enemies because it cannot be done without that support. What does that support achieve? Profit for those who are prepared to use the majority to supply or can do it to their financial or powerful regimes. No one country escapes this unless the people do not support it. And now nowhere is it more apparent than in battle and misinformation regarding UFOs that may just sway you in simply switching alliance. John F. Kennedy stated that presidency is the loneliest job in the world. It is a statement of what he felt he didn't have the courage to say. That is so true. And therefore had to hold it. More importantly, it shows that the world leaders of all countries are not at liability to lead, and they are led by career politics, corporations, and greed, and of those who invest in them. But that is such a true statement, because you can tell, like, you can keep a president almost in if people want it, or not people, because it's not the people's doing at that time or decision. I feel like corporations, they put somebody in leadership and then they kind of keep on running because it feels it fills their pockets or the agendas of what they have put up or invested on. Because I'm just watching what's happening back Europe now in different countries. They keep having this president that is supported almost like people believe it's actually mafia doing this kind of, you know what I mean? Like keeping them in power to gain or to whatever, to laundering their money, how they are doing it. But it's different in our countries out here too, because pharmaceuticals are doing this as well.
Well, we've got Fauci, whatever, would be our prime example in a modern world. He's a career politician. He's been working this since the 90s. He did as much damage as he could. Whether it's contested or not, nobody's ever going to know because he's not going to end up in court for it. He's ended up in front of Senate, which is a bit of a joke. And then everybody has their big fight. So it's an entertainment process where he gets to walk away at the end of it all and carry on doing what he's been doing for 40 years. And I mean 40 years. Who wants people like that in charge of their health system? Nobody should. Even if it's just a matter of we're not sure if we can trust you, then he should not be there, and neither should his policies be influencing anybody else. So there's got to be this larger organization, group, and money that determines this, and over time they chip away for profit. It's always for profit. Follow the money.
It is always follow the money, because it will lead you where you want actually to go and see it.
But
and people know it.
Sorry, go on.
I'm going to say people actually know what's going on, but they can't do anything about it because this government is not fighting for them. It's actually...
There's a certain amount of political reference to people giving up, and they rely on it. Because if people that are good people think we can never get anything done, we can never get anything right, then they don't try anymore. So they end up voting against things rather than for things. And trust me when I say it doesn't work. But let us throw in the super informed and intelligent Carl Sagan, who said, we're back on UFOs, everyone, which is really, this is all about that same thing. How do we misinform people so we can get what we want? Carl Sagan said, for all we know, we may be visited every second Tuesday by extraterrestrial beings, but there is no support for this appealing idea. The extraordinary claims are not supported by extraordinary evidence. Always the question is, where is the evidence? And this could sound reasonable, bar for one notable thing. There is evidence. There has always been evidence, even if it is anecdotal record from the 1700s or photographic from the 70s or videos from the 90s, all of which we have. All we can be certain of is that that evidence has been held back or deliberately hidden for reasons unknown.
I feel they feel like the reasons why they're holding those back is just to feel powerful themselves.
Well, I think that's a bit more complex than that, to be honest. And I think that's the problem. The reason it's being held back by particular individuals is a varied number of different types of reasons. And they may be valid in their own minds, and they may be for profit, or they may be maybe so they can keep doing things the way they're doing them without people saying, well, hang on a minute. You know, we've got an alternative here. Why are you still doing that? Why are you putting your resources into that when we've got this happening over here, right? When it's bigger. This would be bigger than anything, ever.
It is.
Bigger than a war, bigger than a fight. Because all of my life there's been war on this planet. That's you too, because you're younger than me. All of my life there's been war on this planet. All of my life, in fact, for the last few thousand years, we have never had a war-free